Today's invocation is from Alexis Engelbrecht. The phrase is everywhere. Though the words may vary, the essence remains. You are enough. You have what it takes. If you just believe, anything is possible. You can do it. May I suggest that you are not enough? I'm not enough. Each of us as individuals is not enough. We know that alone we can feel overwhelmed and hopeless. Alone we must fend for ourselves. Alone, one is left only to our individual and personal knowledge and experiences. So, no, I'm not enough. But when I'm with another, my tears can be accompanied by the comfort of companionship. When I'm with another, one seemingly impossible challenge is divided by half. And when I'm with the many, the work is shared. Our insights and wisdom multiply in the presence of others. One cannot be everything at once. Instead, when you are with me and I am with you, we are part of a community grounded in love. We are enough. We are whole. And so, in that spirit, it's time to greet one another and pass the peace. Let's welcome one another and exchange our greetings.
No problem.
Hey, Chris. Welcome.
My name is Diane Duesterhoeft. I joined this congregation in 1995 after my partner, now spouse, Mike Phillips, and I decided to go church shopping. Our shopping started and ended at this church, but our journey with this congregation continues. We were attracted to the variety of worship experiences provided here. However, our connections with one another have deepened through our committed involvement. I have served in several leadership positions and currently serve on the Committee on Shared Ministry. Our weekly worship is where we connect, share information and inspiration. To begin, let's acknowledge this geographic place where we are currently located, the home of and traditional lands of the Quahittacan people, original and indigenous stewards of this land to which we all belong, now called Bexar County and San Antonio, Texas. Let us also recognize that many indigenous peoples, even today, have not been recognized by our federal government, and yet continue to live as vital contributors of our communities. Indeed, we recognize that we aspire to become a diverse and multicultural community of communities. At our church, we desire to believe and act in a universal love that binds us in mutual care and affection, especially in our work for justice for all and for our planet. Our faith is all-inclusive, and all means all. If you are new to us or visiting for the first time today, we welcome you to fill out a visitor's card. We'd like to get to know you and follow up with you. Wherever you are on your life's journey, we hope you will find your place with us. Now, let us rise in body or spirit as we sing opening hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit, hymn 347.
flaming chalice unites our members in worship and symbolizes the spirit of our faith. Today's chalice lighting words were written by Kimberly Davis.
Gather the Spirit is a hymn by our UU troubadour, Jim Scott. It is a song of warm, open welcome, a kind of waltz to dance. We light our chalice as an invitation to us all to dance together in community, accompanying each other more closely with gentleness and love.
wanted to say a word to you about our covenant. You may have noticed in the past month that we have been trying on a shorter, more humanist covenant. This came at the request of some people in our congregation who are religious humanists, as many of us are, and said, you know, what's with this old covenant that we've been saying over and over and over for so many years? Please know that that one isn't gone. It's just that we're in a kind of a transition right now, and the way I like to think about it is we're trying it on. And the worship committee is meeting on Wednesday, and usually these kinds of things start with that committee. And then we send out feelers into the congregation and get feedback and that sort of thing. So bear with us now as Diane leads us in this humanist covenant.
We are all called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community, where all are welcome as blessings, and the human family lives in forgiveness, where we all welcome as blessings, and the human family lives in forgiveness and grace, whole and reconciled. We know that this aim takes work, and so we are committed to live and behave as a community in covenant. Let us recite our covenant. The words are in your order of service, as well as in the great hymnal at number 473, that articulates our guidelines and binds us together in community. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law.
This is our great covenant,
to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Praise the Lord and voice.
It's time for our candle lighting ceremony. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we come fully alive. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are heard and held in compassion. At this time, a complex and sometimes confusing time, may we especially listen to one another more deeply and grow more involved and connected as a community. And as a way for us to do this, you're invited to mindfully come forward down the side aisles and light a candle. You know why you're lighting that candle. And maybe you don't. Maybe it's just important to light a candle. And we'll exit up the center aisle and find our way back to our seats. Please be aware of one another as you come down the aisle. Let's join silently in this ritual while Jaime plays our meditation music. I'd like to read some additional joys and sorrows that were written in the book that's always on the table in the foyer when you come in, if you have something you'd like to be read from the pulpit. We'll start with a joy were staying in my new apartment for the first time last night. And joyful for the harvest season and all the celebrations to come. Sorrows for Linda Zimmerman and family on the death of her husband, Jerry, this past week. They were married here in our church 46 years ago. And for Martha Cooley and Dave Minnick and others engaged in life's transitions. Join with me in taking a deep, cleansing breath. Fill your lungs and heart and body with nourishment, and keep breathing as we ask for all our joys and sorrows and concerns to be held in empathy and compassion. May the caring of this community, our community, we offer a space of deep kindness, loving, and just action. Amen. We've been inviting our children to come every Sunday, and it looks like a fairly low turnout today, but the right people are here. And this is the time that we share our story wisdom, which we used to call Time for All Ages. Because, you know, no matter how we look here in this skin bag, there was once a little child that we were. And there are going to be other metamorphoses that we go through before this is done. So I want to tell you a story called A Repair Job. Once upon a time, two sisters lived side by side. They both owned farms. One grew the sweetest grapes for miles around, and the other raised vegetables. Now, a flowing creek ran between their farms, and for many, many years turning into decades, the sisters were as close as they could be. Folks in town said that if you saw one, the other one was always nearby. They shared life together, meals, tools, stories, memories, and their children played together in the creek. Their life had harmony. Then one day, they had a disagreement. It really wasn't about much, but they couldn't resolve it. And slowly that disagreement became an argument, and bitterness set into these sisters' hearts. Maybe you have an experience like this with someone you know, maybe even a family member. There was no more exchanging of meals and tools and stories and laughter. They stopped communicating entirely. I call that cutting off. One day, one of the sisters answered a knock at her door, and there stood a carpenter. "Hello, ma'am, I'm looking for work. Do you have anything that needs building?" "Yes, I do," replied the sister. She pointed to her sister's farm next door. "That farm belongs to my sister. We were best friends, but she has suddenly become unreasonable, and I can no longer stand the sight of it. I would like you to build a wall, a tall fence between our properties, so I don't have to look at it." Well, the carpenter replied, "Okay, I understand your need. I think I know exactly what to do." And so he set out to work, and the sister decided to do her weekly shopping while he was working so she wouldn't be in his way. And when she returned much later that day, she was shocked to see that the carpenter had not built a wall, but instead he constructed a beautiful bridge. It was sturdy and wide, and gracefully carved handrails and posts. Before she could object, her sister came out of her house and also saw the bridge. And her sister approached her side of the bridge and said, "I have been so foolish. How could I have forgotten you were the most loving person in the world? You were my dear sister. I'm so lucky to have you." And she started across the bridge, and the sisters rushed across to the bridge to meet in the middle, and both apologized and hugged and kissed and maybe cried a little bit. Now the carpenter was still around. They thought that he had known exactly what to do. And they wanted to do something nice for him. They said, "We got lots of jobs to do around the farm." And he said, "Thank you very much. I'll be moving on. I've got other bridges to build." Let's sing our children out with our Go Now in Peace song. You can find in 413, or I think it's probably in our order of service, right? It's a simple message. Now it's time for our invitation for generosity. The offertory brings us an opportunity to share our gifts, to harvest something. Gifts that have nourished our hearts and can bring inspiration and care to others. You may make an offering on our online giving portal. Those of you who will watch this tomorrow online, thank you, Rob, for recording it for us. Or you may put an offering in the basket as the ushers pass them to you. And we'll always accept checks mailed into our office made out to First UU Church. Come forward, ushers, while we enjoy some music from Emilia and Bill Westney. my goddess. Our church has a larger purpose, which is to support all of us in becoming more generous with our giving of our gifts. Thank you, Emilia and Bill, for giving yours. Our time, our talents, our treasure, especially that we may succeed in fulfilling our goals, to be a purposeful place, a beacon of light on the hill here in San Antonio, a place of sanctuary and refuge, a place of connection, especially in our service to one another and to our wider community. Thank you, dear ushers, for collecting this. May it bless us all and our wider community. And thank you all. Now I see why you closed this concert grand. We needed to hear Emilia over the grand. Wow. I wanted to do something about the harvest season with you, and I wasn't quite sure where to go with it. So I think I'll start with this sentence. I come by my love of work. Honestly. I grew up very close to my father. He was a very hard worker. His motto was, the harder you work, the luckier you get. He was the first and only member of his siblings to go to college and graduate. And I, as his oldest child, was often invited by him when I wasn't in school to go with him to his work. He was an exemplar of that maxim, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I felt very lucky to work side by side with him over the years. He truly reaped success. And although he died way earlier than I would have liked, he died a fulfilled man. Now, isn't that what we all want? To live fulfilled lives, to reap the harvest of our skills and abilities and gifts and connections and family and talents. And so as we consider harvest season, I'd like to remind us about how much we here do and have done, and how much satisfaction we might derive from remembering the harvest. But first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the educator Booker T. Washington. Now, when I was a kid going to school, I wasn't always as obedient as I should be. And I often got asked to leave the classroom. And sometimes I had to embarrassingly stand out in the hall and see whoever came by. But my favorite times is when the teacher sent me to the library. I devoured every biography in that library. I read all about presidents, heads of state, famous women, and I remember reading about George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington and some of these people that were different than I was. Different skin tone. But not that different. So that's why I want to talk a little bit about him today. He too preached the gospel of hard work. He was born into slavery in 1856, and he worked hard from an early age carrying water to other enslaved laborers on a Virginia tobacco plantation, and also bringing corn to a mill to be ground. Now, after emancipation and the end of the Civil War, he toiled in the coal mines and the salt furnaces of West Virginia. And he wasn't even a teenager because when he became one, he started working for a wealthy white woman named Viola Ruffner. And she said, your first job is to cut the lawn. Now, initially, he was terrible at it. He had to use a scythe, and it wasn't very big. And he was on his hands and knees, chopping away at that grass with a little scythe, and it looked kind of mangled. And his mistress made him cut it over and over again. Many times, he later wrote, when tired and hot, trying to put that yard in order, I was heartsick and discouraged and felt like, why don't I just go home and be with my mama? Instead, he kept trying, working hard, and eventually beheld a lawn in beautiful order. He wrote, when I saw and realized that that was all a creation of my own hands, my whole nature began to change. I felt a self-respect and an encouragement and a satisfaction that I had never before enjoyed or thought possible. Above all else, I had acquired a new confidence in my ability actually to do things and to do them well. Now, this is not just an up by the bootstraps story. In it is a distillation of our belief in the value of accomplishment through work, through efforts. We call ourselves a faith of deeds, not creeds. And that saying means that we work together. We are trying to be a team. The we here. And although you may consider your own individual accomplishments to be somewhat meager, your potential is beyond that, especially when brought together in this community. Your potential is limitless. Our potential is limitless. And if we persist, we will reap the fruits of our harvest. Washington's story contains a valuable lesson. Work hard and you'll be satisfied, because you will make a visible mark on the world. So we have an opportunity here at First Union Church of San Antonio. And I would like you to consider the many endeavors that we undertake, and for the most part, succeed in making a difference. We give gifts of our time, talent, and treasure, supporting those who have needs, both within and without our congregation, whether migrants, or low income, hungry, homeless, or at risk of homelessness. One of our members, I'm very attached to this church, contacted me when it looked like we were going to have this moratorium on rents being forgiven or postponed to go away, and said, do you have enough money in the ministerial discretionary fund? And I said, oh yes. Thanks to this congregation, this minister has the power of the check. We help people stay in their homes and pay their utilities and pay unforeseen medical bills and unforeseen car payments so that people can go to work and feel the confidence that Booker T felt in seeing the fruits of his own labor. So we take care of our own, and we reach out through collaborations with the Texas UU Justice Ministry, the UU Service Committee, Cops and Metro, Reliable Revolutionaries, and our Black Lives and community. allies in community, and many other groups and organizations. So this vision that I referenced earlier, to be a beacon on the hill, is one of being a servant to San Antonio, a sanctuary of safety, education, and inspiration, a beloved community. And the fact is, most of us are here to connect with one another, with a view to growing ourselves into a more diverse community, with broader and wider connections. And quite a few of us who have felt, perhaps until today, unable, unsafe, unwilling to join together in our beautiful sanctuary on Sundays because of COVID, are even here today, and I'm grateful for that. But this will be taken by Rob and the arduous process of uploading so that we can show it on our YouTube video tomorrow for those of us who cannot be here. And I assure you, we have cameras in place to do a wonderful live stream here. We're just needing the operators to be developed and trained so that we can have a live in-person service and live stream simultaneously. That's been my goal for a while since we ran into this buzzsaw of a pandemic about 20 months ago. So I want to let you know that personally. It will all come together. Studies show that people participate in churches for the connections they make, the fellowship, connections that feed them and that they feel fed in giving to. Now, the great Jewish theologian and philosopher Martin Buber described what he called I-thou relationships. He said that when we treat each other like subjects, like equals, not this one-up, one-down thing, we have an I-thou relationship with them. When we treat them like objects, we have an I-it relationship. Now, if our circle of belonging here extends far enough, we'll see that even those we've never met before can be an I-thou with us and we with them. That's my goal. I'm a community builder. That means we'll have to reach out beyond our comfort zones and communicate with the other as an I-thou. What a harvest that could be. And we can each extend our relationships to all kinds of people. Every week we welcome new visitors and guests to our Sunday services. They responsibly fill out visitor cards, and I get to read them. And I love reading that people are coming here because they are seeking community. They are seeking connection. I said, you know, I think we can do that. They are without exception seeking community. So they too, like me and many of you, are community builders. And I ask you, when you see someone that you don't know here, would you please reach out and introduce yourself? I mean, I know it's a little awkward, but if they have the courage to come here, you can't expect them to make that. They've already made the first move, right? So now it's up to us to say, wow, that's a person I haven't seen before. And go ahead, you might be embarrassed. You might find out they've been here for 10 years. You didn't know that. Some visitors tell me they've been here multiple times and haven't met anyone. Kind of hard to believe, but it's true. I trust them. So it's up to us to reach out to them. So please notice, introduce yourself, talk. We need them for our growth. We might think, oh, hey, we're a pretty cool community, they're lucky to be here, you know. Let's not go there. May I remind us of the words of our invocation, that I am not enough, but we are. We need others' insights and wisdom and perspective and mistakes and all the things that make us human, that make us whole. One of my colleagues, the Reverend Kathleen McTeague, tells a story that reveals the harvest of true connection in her book of meditations entitled Shine and Shadow. The morning after my father died, following 3 days and nights of a around-the-clock vigil with my siblings, I had to go to the grocery store to buy a few things for dinner. And when I arrived at the checkout counter and the clerk distractedly said, "How are you?" my brain went blank. I couldn't say fine, okay. I wasn't okay. I wasn't even in my right mind. I was numb, sleep deprived, and saturated with the mystery of our mortality. That's the only explanation I have, because to my horror, I found myself blurting out a real and honest answer. "I'm not so good," I said. "My dad died last night." So with his hands filled with apples and chicken and bread, the poor checkout clerk turned red and started to stammer. And the people behind me looked longingly at the other checkout lines they should have chosen. The ones that would have not placed them within earshot of the too much information lady. And I was mortified at having revealed to an unprepared stranger just how not fine I was. Everyone froze in this uncomfortable moment. Except the young man bagging the groceries, who had Down syndrome. But he stopped moving completely, and he looked straight at me. And with a little slur and great emphasis, he said, "I bet you feel really sad about that." The simplicity of that little expression of kindness and solidarity allowed both the clerk and me to escape. "Well, yes, I do. Thank you," I said to him. And then I was able to walk out with my groceries and not feel so much as though I had undressed in public. And I thought about that encounter for a long time. The young man bagging groceries would be considered disabled in thought, speech, and movement. Yet he was the only one able to offer what counted in that particular moment. He knew how to give a blessing. The young bagger treated her as a subject rather than an object. To him, she wasn't a shopper holding up the line. She was a hurting person, and he empathized with her. His show of solidarity made all the difference. Now, folks, religion comes from the Latin root religio. Same thing as our ligaments and connective tissue. It means to be connected, or as Webster say, to bind back. That's too formal for me. When we join a church, we make certain commitments. We pledge to support our spiritual home, join a committee, sign up to provide flowers, or read the Chalice lighting, or bring food to the home of someone who's sick or injured. It's often these commitments that get us to show up on a day we otherwise choose to remain at home. Sunday. This is what our harvest as a religious community is all about. Sowing the seeds of solidarity and connection. And recognizing that we aren't enough and that we need the perspective and influences of someone else. Maybe someone not like us. Someone who will broaden our vision and view and life. That is reaping the bounty of beloved community. I've said enough. Let's sing this closing hymn. The choir sang it earlier. It's from the Chant for the Seasons. It's probably in your order of service. In the book, I believe it's what, 73, Frank?
Yes.
We're going to sing the verse that has to do with autumn, although it has summertime in it 3 times. So, go figure. Rise as you are in your body or your spirit. Summertime has turned the sorrowing bodies upon us. Summertime has turned the sorrowing bodies upon us. Sing songs, sing the smell of roots, summertime has turned the sorrowing bodies upon us. That'll do. Thank you. Have a seat. Like you, I've had Sunday mornings waking up and thinking of other things I'd rather do than go to church. Then I remember my commitments and my motivation for involvement with this community. So I come to church and I find almost always that I'm glad I came. The gathering has given me energy, not taken it away. And because I belong to this church and I've made promises and commitments, I rejoin this community again and again. This is what belonging means. And if we remove ourselves from our primary associations of loyalty and love, whether it's our congregation or our family or friends or neighbors, we'll be pretty doggone isolated. We need to belong to others. And when we do, we shine more brightly. Like our flaming chalice, we experience the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. We are warm, and we provide warmth. We harvest the fruits of our belonging. And as I extinguish this chalice, may we all say, may it be so. May it be so. Let's enjoy the postlude and one another as we go outside.